Hello there, lovely people. It's Alex from Nintendo Life here, and today we're reviewing for you Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade on the Nintendo Switch 2. This review was originally written by the superb Alana Hagues and has been adapted for video by me. But anyway, that's more than enough waffling. Let's dive right into things. If you're familiar with Final Fantasy VII, you've probably seen the opening sequence to the game God knows how many times at this point. From the first time staring at the intro from the living room carpet, to watching the camera zoom out and pan across Midgar in Final Fantasy VII Remake back in 2020, it's safe to say that this cutscene has been viewed an awful lot of times by an awful lot of people over the years. And frankly, it's still fantastic. If that's you, then expect to be in awe once again with Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade on Nintendo Switch 2. Except this time, you're going to be able to do the whole thing, watching the same bird fly over Midgar, the kids playing in the slums, the Aerith walk through the city, all on a relatively small, comparatively to a TV, 7.9-inch LCD screen. We're not only in love with the wonderful music or the perfect setup to one of the most incredible worlds in RPGs, we're actually amazed at how good the whole thing looks on the little Nintendo Switch 2 screen. Okay, it's not that little, but it's little compared to a TV. We've been through this. Final Fantasy VII Remake is astonishing on Nintendo's console, and is easily one of the best Switch 2 ports so far. Yes, there are caveats like 30 frames a second, softer screen resolution, and some fuzzy textures here and there, but Square Enix has clearly put the time and effort in here to ensure the best possible result, and with the episode Intermission DLC included as standard as well, this might be the definitive way to play Remake on the go. And that's how Alana spent most of her time with it, and honestly, it's a bit of a revelation. In both handheld and docked, Remake looks just spectacular, especially when you're exploring the iconic diesel punk metropolis. It's rammed full of people, scrap heaps of junk, vehicles, flowers, and dead grass attempting to break through the otherwise barren grounds. We had to pinch ourselves a few times as we got reacquainted with the Sector 7 slums or the narrow alleyways of Wall Market. Every single inch of Remake on Switch 2 is a real testament to the lighting, which director Hamaguchi-san has acknowledged as key. It makes this version appear closer to the PS5 release's performance mode than the original PS4 one. And honestly, to our eyes, when you're playing it docked, other than the obvious lower frame rate and the sort of dithering around Cloud and other spiky-haired characters' hair, which to our knowledge is something to do with the upscaler struggling to interpret subpixel information or something like that, it's honestly difficult to tell at first look. Areas like the aforementioned slums are where those texture problems are most notable, on flowers and scrap heaps in particular, but this is where most of the original's texture problems were as well. NPC faces here are also a little odd looking, but again, this is an existing problem with Remake on other platforms. In terms of frame rate when docked, we didn't notice any significant drops at all. Not in combat where we were punching and kicking our way through foes with Tifa, or slicing and dicing as Cloud, nor in some of the busiest areas like Wall Market. Even the motorbike sections, where lighting and particle effects are flying around all over the place, nothing seems to be able to shake it in any significant way. Handheld is a little bit less consistent, but mostly just during cutscenes and transitions, when there's fire, trains, or a lot of close-up movement. And it's never for more than a few seconds at most, which, you know, we can live with considering it's on such a small screen. The softer image quality might also get a little bit of getting used to, but again, this isn't a high-power PC or even a PS5. This is a little bitty baby handheld, and this is based on the PS5 Intergrade version anyway. So the port part of Remake is a huge success, and luckily, the game itself is as well. It's a fantastic RPG with some of the best combat in the genre, and a complete reimagining of the iconic 3 to 5 hour sequence of the PlayStation original release over 30 hours. And it works! The action is superbly tuned, focused on utilizing your entire party to take down enemies and bosses by staggering them and then dealing a huge amount of damage by using ATB-consuming skills. Every character is very different to play as well. Tifa is excellent at putting pressure on the enemy and then dealing the big numbers once staggered, whilst Barrett's long-range gun arm can easily take down airborne enemies. You have to engage with every system in order to win, even in normal mode. It's not turn-based, which we know some purists aren't too happy with, but Remake still incorporates a little bit of that traditional RPG with a menu that allows you to briefly, if not fully pause the battles, slow them down to basically being paused, and select skills for you and your allies. We tended to use a mix of menu hopping and shortcuts, the latter of which doesn't break up the flow of combat. Helpful for Cloud and Tifa, who are almost always in the heat of the action, and we also constantly switch between characters depending on the situation. Touching on the narrative, we want to stress that whilst Final Fantasy VII Remake is pretty darn faithful to the 1997 original, it also tests the boundaries of what a remake actually is, particularly towards the end. We can't say we like all of the changes, and a few of the new characters didn't quite click with us at first, but when the remake nails it, it really nails it. If you grew up with Final Fantasy VII, it's incredible to see this world and these characters fully realized on modern hardware. Cloud is not the mopey fellow the compilation will lead you to believe, he actually has some snark and silliness to his character, and Aerith is just a remarkable human being who carries the story of both this and Rebirth on her back. We've sung her praises before, and we're going to keep doing it. And seriously, the dialogue and banter in this game can be absolutely hilarious, with Cloud's stoicism often challenged by Aerith's teasing, and Barrett's over-enthusiastic pleas to save the planet battered down by Cloud's own bluntness. It knows when to balance the levity with serious moments, and that's something that a lot of video games tend to struggle with. For those who haven't touched Final Fantasy VII before and are worried, don't fret. Even with some of the additions, the Switch 2 port is still an amazing way to experience part of one of the most influential games of all time. The story beats are all the same, and the tone and outright weirdness of the original are also still intact, perhaps even better than ever. Whilst Cyberpunk 2077 is still arguably the best port on the system just simply due to its sheer size and scope, and I want to make that clear, Alana wrote that, I'm not adding that in, Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade is close behind for its visual detail, incredible lighting, and largely consistent frame rate. Even in its attempts to swing big and do something different, Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade respects where it's come from. The classic's pro-revolutionary heart is still intact, and it's never afraid to get a little bit weird and a little bit funny. The Switch 2 version makes impressively few compromises to get this gorgeous-looking game running on the system, and even at 30 frames a second, it still looks and feels fantastic. The fact that everything from this PS5 release is preserved in such excellent fashion here is remarkable, and it makes us excited and indeed anxious about Rebirth's incoming port. Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, you're getting a 9 out of 10 from us. Now that the formal review's out of the way, it's time for Alex's personal thoughts, and I need to preface this by saying I have never played Final Fantasy VII before. I know. For years and years and years, I've heard how, oh, it's such a great game, you should really play it, Alex. How can you run a Nintendo channel without playing Final Fantasy VII, despite the fact it wasn't released on a Nintendo platform? The truth is that we all have blind spots, we all have stuff we didn't play when we were younger and it was relevant, and it's just one of those things where I've just never got round to playing it until now. And I have to say, bar a few little criticisms here and there, it's a really bloody good game. The combat is really engaging and genuinely quite challenging at times, which is a blessed relief because I hate it when combat's too easy. Although I do have a bit of an issue with Barrett and his aiming. Like, I like the idea of the character, and I like Barrett's character just because of how unhinged he can be. But his aiming feels a little bit stilted when it comes to using his ranged attack. It's not a big deal, but it just doesn't feel... I don't get quite the feedback that I was expecting. But this game isn't a shooter, so it's not a big deal by any means. I agree with Alana that the dialogue broadly is very good for a video game, but there are also... there are some instances where it's... undeniably a little bit cringeworthy. You know, I suppose you expect it to a degree, but also it really, you can really feel that, you know, either this happened all the time or certainly happened at times. The actors weren't in the same room together. You know, line deliveries don't flow from one to the other. I understand why it is the way that it is, and maybe it's better in the Japanese original. I can't speak Japanese, so I wouldn't be able to tell. But it's not a deal breaker by any means. It's meant to be a bit cheesy. It's meant to be a little bit, you know, sort of classic heroics kind of thing. You know, it's meant to be a story. It's a fantasy at the end of the day. Yet it's not the final one. I've been really enjoying it. I haven't completed it yet, so I can't pass too much judgment about the game overall. But from what I've played, it is a bloody good time. And frankly, the fact that it looks this good on Switch too, like, I mean, I know that the upscaling, like, is doing a lot of heavy lifting here, the Nintendo brand DLSS, you know? But it does it so well. Yeah, Cloud's hair looks a little bit odd at times, but one of the big things that you often see is what's called or referred to as boiling in light. So they look, you know, it's just something to do with the way that light's emitting light and then being upscaled. It looks like they're sort of fluctuating in intensity along parts of them, and it makes them look almost a bit like they're kind of flickering or strobing, but only very, very gently. It's not here at all. I've looked through, and every light I've looked at just for some reason does not seem to be affected by this. How they manage that, I've no idea, but it looks bloody fantastic. In some ways, it really feels like the developers are just almost showing off at this point. It's like, oh, look at what a beautiful game we can do. And, you know, I can't deny I'm a sucker for that. It looks gorgeous. I agree with Alana that I think Cyberpunk is just, it's a little bit more impressive just because it's a big open world thing. But, you know, I can't deny that this is a prettier game. Like the lighting is, it's just almost irritatingly good at times. My overall verdict? It's certainly a good.
No holding back.